guy to take a lead from. No way.
That's the nicest I've ever heard Brad be to you, Jonathan.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Huh? Beating what?
That was the kindest I've ever seen you interact with Jonathan.
Oh, Jonathan knows I love him. Are you kidding? He's the godfather to my children. You didn't know that?
I take it all very seriously.
Can we just
skip? Cry myself to sleep.
Could we just get can we skip like our scheduled content and have Jonathan tell me just any tips and tricks for being Brad's business partner? You've lived it.
Oh, dude, I mean, it's going to take a few podcasts for that one, man.
Are you serious? I am so
podcasts.
chill. I am so chill.
I can tell you the first thing is don't get into business with Brad and Danny. That's rule number 1.
Edit.
1A.
Edit. We're gonna have to start this over.
Absolutely not. This is gold.
I'll say that to his damn face.
A support group.
No comment.
Well, how about them Padres?
Oh, how about them Padres?
9-2, baby. 9-2. A little little league home runs yesterday against the A's in their AAA ballpark. It's been nice.
Yeah. For the faithful, nice. Baby.
What do they? Did they hire like Billy Bean or what's his name? Billy Bean from Moneyball? Is that how they're running that shop now?
No, they did not. He's not even really in baseball very much anymore. But no, it's just like our GM is finally like he's got enough experience. I think he's finally figured out how to like construct a team really well. And he's constructed a very, very good team.
Well,
like we have everything from
Tatis is batting. What is he batting? 390 or something?
Dude, something like that. I don't know if you saw his. I don't know if you saw the highlights from the game last night, but he had this home run that it like literally everyone in the stadium gasped when he hit it. Like they're just like, but it only went like 405 feet, but it went like 100 feet past the field or the outfield fence. It was like not even that crazy of a home run, but just because of that ballpark, it made it look like he hit it like 600 feet. It was wild.
Wow.
So
he reminds me of like Ken Griffey Jr. Just his swing a little bit. Like it's not a Ken Griffey Jr. swing, but like it. I mean, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's got a good swing, man. He knows what he's doing.
Jonathan was wearing a Ken Griffey Jr. shirt last time we hung out.
I sure was. I have quite a few of those Ken Griffey Jr. shirts. That's my boy.
I think he's
I'm a Padres fan through and through.
I think he's the GOAT.
I think so too. And I don't think there's any arguing that he has the most beautiful swing in the history of baseball. It is the most glorious thing ever. Freaking love it. Not only can I do watch just videos of his swing way more often than I care to admit.
Okay, I mean, you're better off watching Messi's goals or, top soccer goals than watching. I mean, what do you watch? Like a bunch of singles and doubles and,
Oh boy, we back on this. The baseball v soccer, we back on this.
This is coming from the guy who falls asleep to World War II documentaries every night. Okay, so I'm sure I could find better things to watch, like Ken Griffey Jr. highlights.
Ken Griffey Jr. was my brother's guy. I was a Gary Sheffield guy. That's the only reason for the cool looking bat tap,
I ran into that guy before a Mets game downtown San Diego, like 10, probably 15 years ago now. And he was about as stonewall cold to everybody as you would imagine he would be. Just nothing. He was get out, get in there, eat some food, get out. I'm not wasting my time with you little peons out here eating your food with me. So, but he was a stud though. Gary Sheffield is a stud.
We forget how many Padres All-Stars came up through the pods. Before then, we couldn't pay them what they were worth. And so, of course, they became an All-Star somewhere else, right?
Dude, we could give you a list.
Yeah.
A long list of those people that we traded away or lost to free agency or fire sold away.
Mm-hmm.
Nasty stuff, but not
nice
anymore.
Nice to be in an era where we can keep some of that star power. It's great.
That's right. We just signed Jackson Merrill, 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be that's a steal for that guy too.
Yeah.
So
who?
Oh god.
And that's why Brad never gets my season tickets.
I'm
Oh,
a Jackie
man.
Robinson guy. I just keep it, tried and true.
Hey,
No,
I
I
just
get
ordered a new Jackie Robinson shirt. Yeah, I have like
nice.
pictures of that dude on my walls. Like I have several shirts. I'm a
Yeah, get them
big
before they delete them from every database. But I get Matt Kemp
gosh.
a lot. So there's something about the Dodgers. And then I grew up yelling at Chipper Jones when he'd miss line drives, and
Zipper.
it's
That
got
kind of
respect for
sucks.
Andrew Jones. Yeah, man. But anyway,
Dude,
look,
that Braves team was legit in the 90s.
yeah, back when it was Turner Field, well, it's
Oh.
Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Memories. Anyway, look, this is what we do almost every Monday morning. I let you guys talk baseball while I get my notes together, and then I try to present something about marketing strategies. And Jonathan comes in and says, "Look, this is how you do real advertising."
I don't
So,
know about that. I don't know
how
about that, ER.
how did you
Oh
come to know
man.
Brad and Mike? Who is Optimatic?
Yeah, so I mean, so Brad and I go back a little bit further than Mike and I do. So Matt, yeah, so Brad was introduced from a third party, is how we got connected. We're just going to leave a little bit of that information out of it for now, but we were introduced via a third party. And at the time, Brad actually came on as one of the initial partners and kind of pseudo founders of Optimatic, which is the agency that I work at now. And so, after lots of different things going on in each of our courts. Like, I think, we kind of made the decision it was best for everybody to kind of handle their own thing. So I kind of took over Optimatic entirely. Brad obviously has had lots of opportunities. I'm sorry if it's loud back here. It sounds like there's a trash truck back there. If you can hear that, I apologize. But so no, it's actually my laundry machine bouncing around. But in any case, yeah, so he went on to Current Commerce, obviously. And then, Mike and I actually go back a little bit further than just the Current Commerce side. We were kind of talking a little bit when you were at what was the name of that
Emerged. Yep.
Emerged? Yes. And so I did a little bit of work with Mike there, and then Brad and Mike got connected, and then I got sucked in with both those guys, and then along came you, Eric Robert, and so we all just big party, big happy family now. So we're just we've been back connected for a few years now, and no matter how much Brad and I try, we can't get rid of each other.
it's true. That's pretty much how you sum it up.
And you guys try. You guys do try.
I try to get rid of him all the time, but he's just too handsome and he's too knowledgeable in the advertising space. So we kind of need him. We need you. We kind of
you got one of the two things right in that. I'm not going to say which one, but you got one of the two right.
We kind of need you because you make complex things easy to understand as far as I'm concerned, right? And the reason I bowed out of Optimatic is I couldn't contribute because I didn't have the background, I didn't have the knowledge or the time to catch up to what you know how to do, which is unbelievably important and valuable, especially now. Because I think right now, this year, especially with what's going on, everyone's going to be looking for value, and everyone's going to be looking for new tactics and new ways to deploy their money and get a higher return. So I would love to hear you kind of crack open the black box a little bit today, which I think you do a really good job of. And that's how we operate too, is just trying to be transparent and, help people understand all their options before they jump in head first. So.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of where that comes from too, right? Is like there's so many, one of the reasons that I even had the idea of Optimatic in the very beginning was because I was working with some other vendors that were very closed off as to information and what was actually going on in the background. And they didn't really give me a lot of information for me to make educated and database decisions based on what I was doing in advertising. And so, once you kind of get into it a little bit, you realize that there's actually no need for that, right? It's actually not being a very good partner. And so, going back even further than just Optimatic, I've been in digital marketing for a long time, and it's always been kind of an issue. And so that's like been a foundation of Optimatic, is like, we're just going to be open. We're going to be honest, even if it gets us in trouble or we mess up, like we're going to be honest. We're going to be open. We're going to give you all the data that you asked for. And, we're just going to be a good partner. And I think that's, where you guys come in with Current Commerce as well, is just, hey, we're going to be really good, strong partners. We're going to, be somebody that works with you. It helps you grow. We're going to grow with you. And it's just going to be like a big, happy family. And so I think that's why we kind of gravitate toward each other, is just we have a really good philosophy on how we go about our client work and what we do with people.
Well, it ain't our love of baseball. I'll tell you that much.
It's my love of
Your
baseball.
love
I'll
of
take it.
baseball. All right.
I'll take it.
Well, we live in the same city, okay? Or maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, get on board with the local team,
Uh,
Brad.
So we'll round robin this, but Eric, Robert, probably still your thunder. Tell us what Optimatic does day in and day out. Like, what is the core competency? What are some of the things you're dealing with every day? And then it'd be great to get into like trends and new tactics and what gets you excited every day in this space.
Yeah, so broad strokes, we're like a foundational digital marketing agency. We started off with a foundation of programmatic advertising, which we still do very heavily. That is one of the big bases that we work off of. But we also do all paid media. So your Google, Facebooks, your TikToks. We actually leave Amazon because that's a very specified. We have other partners that we go to for that. But we do SEO, we do design dev. We kind of consider ourselves a little bit of the trench coat guy. Anything you need, we're going to figure out a way to work it. And so, we don't really have super strict contracts even, right? So if there's something in your digital business needs that you have, we're going to help you out with that. And, it's kind of transformed a lot. And we're working with a lot of our clients on how to integrate AI and how to use that quite a bit into their businesses. And so, like I said, it's a little bit of everything, but it all falls pretty much under the digital marketing umbrella that is just, the partner for businesses to help them get wherever they need to.
I think most people understand a lot of what you just said, but I think a lot of people miss what programmatic actually is. Can you just define programmatic for the audience?
Yeah, happily. So the easiest way that I like to explain programmatic is if you're familiar with display advertising or banner advertising, which I'm going to take even a step further. So if you are on a website and you see one of those advertising little blocks, it's usually a square or a rectangle. That's a display advertising unit, right? And so you can actually run that through Google Ads, but programmatic is actually taking that a huge step further. We have a lot more examples of audience targeting. We can do a lot more types of creatives. We have a lot more inventory, those types of things. So it's like traditional display advertising, those banners on steroids. And so we have a lot of information. We can ingest third party, first party. We can do location data. We can do credit card data. We can do different kind of ad units, display. We can do audio, connected TV, digital video. We can do in-game on apps. We can also do in-game on your like PlayStation or Xbox, like all sorts of stuff. And so it just gives us a really big, robust avenue to ultimately, the thing is we want to serve the right ad to the right person where they are, not where we think they are. And so that's what really, programmatic allows us to do, is to serve people or serve ads to people exactly who we want to do. So it takes out a lot of the upper funnel shotgun approach where it's a lot of wasted ad spend. Essentially, you're always going to be hitting somebody who's a potential customer of yours.
Yeah. So, Jonathan, like where we approach a lot of our clients when we're first getting to know them is like, there's probably some things that we could assume that we could do for them, but we always try to say, hey, let's look at what you're currently doing. Right. So saying it's an Amazon prospective client, let's just look at your Amazon account. That could be financials, that could be operational inventory, that could be advertising, to see where there might be room to improve, right? Like from a advertising standpoint, sometimes it's looked at in silos for those that aren't super familiar with it, right? Like how is your AMS on Amazon, or above AMS, like how's your DSP on Amazon, or if it's outside of Amazon, how's your Google ads, and so on and so forth. But like when you come in strategically, where you're first trying to get your feet wet and understand the efficacy of a partner's digital ad strategy, we'll just focus on ads. Like where do you begin?
Okay, yeah. So you're probably going to hear me say this several times over this conversation, but my favorite saying in the entire world is rising tide lifts all ships. I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing me say that because I say it all the time, but that's really kind of what you're talking about. Like the whole idea of looking at digital marketing channels like in a silo, it's a very old school way of thinking. That's kind of how we thought about it when I got my first job at my first agency back in 2011. It was like, how's Google ads doing? How's SEO doing? How's, at the time it was the Meta was just doing the advertising thing, but it was like, well, we need to see how this is doing. And so it's shifted quite a bit, kind of fast forwarding to 2025. Like you can't have one thing, without it affecting something else. And it's not just in the paid media. It's on organic. It's in your emails, your SMSs. It's how your website's looking and converting and all those types of things. And so when we go about and we are looking at a new client and we're and we're trying to understand what they're doing and how we can help them, we first see what they're currently doing. And then we do audits of each of those accounts. And I actually have a team that will go through and do like channel audits, right? But what I do is I get into the back end. So let's just take, for example, a company that works with Shopify, is I go into the back end and I look at everything about, where our traffic is coming from. Are they net new? Are they returning customers? What's your attrition rate? What, where are the sources coming from? What are you seeing the most success from a ROAS perspective? How's your store doing as a whole? And then we start to kind of put those channel audits into a larger picture, and we start to really get a feel for what the business is doing as a whole. And even though we might be onboarded for just Google Ads or Google Ads and Meta, as somebody who really is like the strategic part of, the digital strategist of our team is, I have the team that's doing Google or Facebook or whatever it might be, but I'm looking at it from the business perspective. We start to blend it all together. So how do we manipulate, something from the upper funnel to affect Google Ads, or how do we do engagement on Facebook to affect the conversion rate on the website and so forth, right? So we just start to put all the pieces together to have a true understanding based on data, what the store is doing, what the business is doing, where the shortcomings are, where it's doing well, and then we start to manipulate it as much as we possibly can to make it more efficient, to help it grow, whatever it might be at that point. But so we kind of, I have other people looking at the nitty gritty, and I'm looking at everything overall, and then we start to blend it.
So one thing I got turned on to pretty quickly in working with you is this whole concept of audience building and being able to kind of take, this lookalike audience, right, that you guys do, and whether it's taking data from the customer or data from other sources, like how does that work? Like, what does that mean? Because I think that's where there's a lot of the secret sauce that goes on in the beginning stages, but maybe I'm totally off. So kind of explain, this whole lookalike audience building, how does that work?
So that's a really good question, and we could probably spend an entire podcast just on audiences.
Let's not.
No, we're not. I'm gonna bring it down as digestible as we can. But audiences themselves are very robust. Like there's a lot you can have access to if you know where you're going. Starting off from first party. So first party is anything that you have based on your site or sales or anything like that, right? That's kind of like the bread and butter. And for anybody who's listening at this point, that's one thing that as we are steering more and more into privacy issues and privacy concerns with people, your first party audiences are going to be some of the most important and the most revenue producing that you're going to have. So doing things like making sure you're focused on building, your email list, your SMS list, your customer list, anything like that is going to be really, really paramount, because the things that we can do with a first party, kind of leaning into what you're talking about with lookalike audiences, right? So if we want to take a, let's say an audience that is only the people who are converting on your site, right? So we can take the converters on your site and we can put it through our systems and create a lookalike. And what a lookalike does is it takes all the common attributes of everybody who purchased on your site, and it looks for these commonalities, and then it expands it to everybody who didn't purchase. So what are the commonalities? And how do we push this to everybody else who didn't buy? And let's start pulling them in, because there's a lot of commonalities that they have. And because of that commonality, there's a higher likelihood that they're going to purchase. Okay, so lookalikes, but you can do lookalikes based on conversion. You can do it based on a page view. You can do it based on engagement. You can do it based on, things like how they're engaging with your social media posts, things like that, all over the place. So lookalikes are a really good way to take what you have from data and expand on it. We also have things like third-party audiences, which are things like, let's say, one I was looking for the other day was I needed to find an audience for people who had high credit card spend on concert tickets. Okay. That's an audience that we have access to. So like credit card spend, or do they visit restaurants frequently, or do they go to certain places, like physical places? Do they do that? All those types of things with third-party audiences. Then you can, kind of expand out from there in terms of like, oh, they like Nike, or they like the New Yorker magazine, or anything like that. There's pretty much anything you could possibly imagine. There's an audience for it. Like really, that's what it comes down to. And then it expands out from there. I won't get into there's like keyword targeting, there's contextual targeting, and then you kind of back it into that. But audiences are basically the way that we are making sure that we are serving those ads to the right people. And it starts from the baseline of your first party data, then you kind of expand out from there, and you keep on rocking.
Gotcha. And you can also break that down, like when you're doing a campaign, you're building a campaign with an audience in mind. You can break it down and focus on geography, right? You could focus on time of day. You could focus on a variety of things as well. So not only are there a lot of different inputs to create that audience and what you base it on, you can also, when you're actually executing a campaign, do a lot of different things. Is that fair?
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it. Yeah, there's about, I can't remember the exact number. It's like 20 something different levels of optimizations that we can actually do in our campaigns. Talking about from the day parting to geo, and there's there's the OSs that people are using, the browsers people are using. It goes on and on. But yes, so there's a lot of those levers that you can actually really start to hone in on. But one thing to note on that, and whether it's programmatic or Google or Meta or whatever it might be, is one of the cool things and the time saving things that we've actually had is like the pixels, the way that these platforms are actually tracking the success of campaigns and our advertising. Pixels have gotten so strong that they actually start to pick up a lot of those signals, and they will actually automatically do that within your campaign. It doesn't do everything. It's like a good little, call it a little steroid shot that's going to like springboard things, but there's a lot you like that I still do on top of that, but it does take some of that tediousness out. But pixels are very, very important for anything that we do in advertising, from a site ownership perspective, from a business perspective. Pixels and making sure that they're set up and tracking accordingly, paramount to success.
How does a pixel apply to attribution, or does it not at all?
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, essentially, what happens is the pixel is what passes back the attribution data to a campaign. Okay, so without a pixel, you're basically just running blind. You don't know how it's doing on site. You get front end metrics, right? So like from like the programmatic side, I'll know if somebody clicks on an ad, if they see an ad, anything like that. But anything, if they go to the site, we are completely blind if there's no pixel on that. We don't know they purchased. We don't know if they stayed on and saw multiple pages. We don't know their bounce rate, nothing like that. So the pixel is actually what connects people's behaviors on your site back to the campaign from the origination.
But if you're advertising on Facebook or some of these other walled gardens, there's no concept of a pixel, right? Like is that you just depend on those platforms to feed you the data and trust that it's accurate?
Well, if you're in the marketing advertising space, you don't trust the platforms. No one trusts the platform. Speaking about Meta, right? So you actually do a backend API connection. And I'm going to stick with Shopify on this because there's a tool, a really easy connection point, but it's an API that goes directly into the site, and then you do a whole build out. So it's an atypical pixel. It's not like you're getting a little bit of code that you might have from other platforms that you place on the site. But even with that, so the one thing that I am constantly reminding our clients is that you really do not trust the platform data. Like, you look at it for optimizations and stuff within, but on almost all my clients, use a third party attribution tool to really understand what's going on. Because what happens is, out of the gate, typically something like Meta will have a 30-day click window for conversion and a 30-day view conversion. Okay. And what that means is that, so if somebody clicks on your ad and then they don't purchase whatever that you're trying to sell them, and they come back 28 days later, that ad is going to get 100% credit for driving a sell. And that is not how it should work, right? Like, really, the way that I actually move, and that's an easy way for agencies to overinflate their value to their clients. It's going to look really, really good because it's taking as much credit as it possibly can. Whenever possible, I always move my click window down to 1 day and less if I can. I really want to do a last click model from a click attribution. And then I do a view at 30 days. And a view conversion is essentially saying that, hey, I saw your ad, I interacted with it. Maybe I went to the site, maybe I didn't, but I didn't purchase. But sometime in those next 30 days, I did purchase. You then get a view through conversion saying, hey, I introduced this person to the brand or the product, and then they came back and purchased later. It's a way to actually put some of that attribution and like that omnichannel marketing together a little bit. But you have to be really careful about the click window that a lot of these platforms do have, because, Meta was doing 30. I think they might be down to 7. You have to go in there and really look at it within your own instance, but that's something to be very, very cautious of for everybody.
And what about, Jonathan, what's happened in the recent years where a lot of these providers are trying to combat and serve more privacy, right? Like cookieless pages, cookies are going away and things like that. Like, have you had to keep up with? I know that there was like, what was it, a few years ago where there was the big iOS change and things like that. You're always adapting to these big policy changes and rollouts. What has happened, and what do you see like maybe foresee as potentially happening where you'll have to pivot and adapt to some of these changes?
That's a really good question. And that's one of those things that we don't really know because things change so fast, right?
Yeah.
Like essentially, if you're in digital marketing under any avenue, whether you're focused, whether you're doing overall, is that if you do not have a really healthy way to keep up with the constantly moving like information and changes that are taking place, then you're going to be left behind really, really quickly. Like for example, just kind of give you a little insight into how this works sometimes is Meta has recently released all these AI features within their ads. Okay. Now they don't tell anybody they did this, but what they're doing, like one of the things that they're doing with this is they would go back into the account and look at successful headlines, even in ads that were turned off or paused. And if they were successful, they will bring them into live and active ads. Okay. But the issue is that it was bringing like sale headlines in. The sales were out of date. They were no longer active. Well, they didn't tell anybody they were doing this. Literally, like we had one client, like right when it happened, they messaged us and they said, "Hey, you need to take down the sale ad." We're like, "We did." We went in there and checked it and we did some research, and it was this AI feature that Meta did, right? So sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error, but in any situation, like making sure you have avenues that you trust for, hey, these are the releases that are going on. This is what's happening. When it comes to things like privacy, it's a constant change. Like again, going back to Meta, they're getting rid of a lot of their interest targeting. They're doing like broad interest, really, really broad stuff. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, but like that, a lot of that stuff stems from privacy, right? Like you're getting too close to being able to identify someone based on their behaviors. And that's really where that legal issue stems. You cannot do anything that's personally identifiable. And so, when we're working through all that, you have to be very hyper like aware of like the ads, what you're doing. Sometimes we just go in there and start like poking around and like clicking different things and seeing, oh, this is new. Oh, okay. Well, we didn't see this. This was a new release note that Meta did, although they didn't tell anybody, like things like that. Or we get wind of it. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of following people, and it's a lot of just trial and error. But a lot of the privacy stuff is going to be a bigger and bigger issue as people go back and back and back. So, there's things like third-party attribution tools that I've become more and more of a fan of to get a little bit clearer sense of what's going on. There's all sorts of things, but I mean, really, it's a constant pursuit of keeping up with what is changing. It's an ongoing. I mean, forget like week to week. It could be day to day sometimes.
Yeah, we understand that. We saw that. It's really like where you lean on experts, right? You're in the system all day, every day, not just for one account, but on behalf of multiple clients, right? So you above anybody should be up to speed, right? Same thing for us. Like we're e-commerce and omnichannel commerce strategists and experts, but we prospect and win customers through marketing techniques too. And it was like last year on email, right? Like things that were working really great for us in email just like tanked, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was that realization of like, there's things that we are experts in. There's things that we're not experts in. Maybe we're above average, but like you have to constantly be adapting to these things where I just think that like for brands, that they may have the disadvantage of just looking at it through their sort of like one account and use case versus agencies and specialists that are looking at it, across the board, right?
Absolutely. It's and I think that actually stems to one of the big shifts that's happening is that in the advertising space, if and I can ask any one of you this question and probably everybody but Brad. So Eric, Robert, and Mike would probably have the right answer. Brad, I don't know about you, but if you're looking to buy something, like say it's a vacuum, it could be something really simple like a vacuum. Like you're probably going to go to Amazon, but you're also really curious about what is the best vacuum to buy. So what you do is you either ask people or you go look for reviews. Okay. So one of the big shifts in terms of all this is trust factors. And so we're seeing a big shift in the marketplace of third party or what looks like third party reviews of a business, of a product, of something along those lines. In Meta, it's called whitelisting ads, right? Like, so it looks like it's coming from a third party, but that's a huge shift that's happening right now is people no longer trust brands. And why should they? I mean, everyone's out there tooting their own horn. Hey, we're awesome. This is great, blah, 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 blah. But, how many times are you, when you're out and about doing your outreach, are you getting referrals from people that like, oh, hey, I worked with Current Commerce, or I've worked with Brad before. I've worked with Mike before. Oh, hey, man, like Eric Roberts been great to work with. Let's see what they're doing over there. That's going to carry exponentially more weight than just seeing like an ad pop up. And so that's a big shift that's happening right now, right? Is this how do you make it look like somebody is recommending you, even if it's not a true recommendation?
So it's funny. I just had a conversation with a third party review generator today, and it's interesting. And I guess this whole syndication piece of reviews is something that's sort of new to me. But there's also, I guess the retailers of the world who put products up on their sites are open to getting reviews from other sources as opposed to their own sites. But I gotta take us here because I think, for the few people, the one person who's watching this, they might want to know what some of these acronyms mean. And I used to think I was pretty good with acronyms because I used to be a network engineer, believe it or not. I was not a real engineer. I was not a real engineer. But there's a lot of acronyms in telecom, but like there's a lot of acronyms in this space. So I don't expect you to explain all these, but what I want you to focus on are what are the most important acronyms. So I wrote down a little list here. That's why I put my glasses on. CAC, PPM, CTA, LTV, COA, CPM, PPC, WTF, GFY, ROAS, ACOS, and tacos. Like, just give us 5 that are like the most important measurements in ads, if you could, because like I hear all these people talk about all these different things, and I'm just like, you know what? What is the freaking ROI? That's all I care about. But everyone has to look smart and say all this stuff. What do you think? What are the most important things?
Taco Tuesday, baby.
Taco Tuesday. So, well, here's the thing, right? Is like, there's even ones in there that you listed that like, I'm like, I don't even know what those are. Like, those are probably much more entrenched Amazon stuff than what I, get into.
BTF and GFY. You've never heard of those before?
I mean, every time I see you, it's just GTFO, right? Like, so, but no. So when we look at it from like an advertising perspective, I think that there's a couple baseline ones that are really, really important, right? And so, and whether we're looking at something from the programmatic side, from a Google side, from an Amazon side, from a Meta side, doesn't really matter. But like, it comes from, I think it could probably be boiled down to like 3, if I was actually going to say, which would be click-through rate, conversion rate, and ROAS. So ROAS, return on ad spend, conversion rate, CVR, that's one that, that one's used a couple different ways. And then clicks is click-through rate. So click-through rate is just how many people saw your ad versus how many people clicked. Conversion rate is how many people who were on your site actually converted. And the ROAS is your revenue divided by your spend. Okay. That's the baseline of it. Everything else, like, will start to affect those numbers. Like in programmatic, a CPM is going to have a lot more of an impact than it might do on Google, for example. But when you get down to those 3, if you have a strong ROAS, and if you have a strong conversion rate, and you have a good click-through rate, then pretty much everything else is going to fall in line. It's as simple as that. And then you have a bunch of just like all the back end stuff, which, some of our clients get really nitty-gritty into some of those things, and some are just like, how much money do we make? What's our ROAS? That's it, right? And so, but one of the things you said that I actually really like on that is, when we look at it from a store perspective, right? And kind of going back even further to what you were saying, Mike, like sometimes we see these clients get so hyper focused on, well, Google ads went down this week, or what's happening on Meta. And what I've been steering people toward is, let's look at things from a store perspective. And then let's not even back in conversions from those channels. Let's look at how much we spent. And let's see the traffic that they sent over. And then we're going to start to look at things from the holistic store approach. And we're going to see how ad spend has affected that. Like, because again, platforms are going to lie. They're going to take a lot more credit. And so I don't trust that anyways. So why would I even take a look at that into my trackers that I do for all my clients? We have daily trackers that do all this stuff for us. Is how's the store doing? How much money we put in? What's our overall store and ROAS? Is it working or is it not? If it's not, what do we got to do to fix it? Something like that.
Makes sense. Very good. Very good. I have a bunch of other
right.
questions, but I want to give the guys a chance because, like, you know, they're pretty smart. So
I'm just
I want to
wondering
get
what's the likelihood of advertising, let's say, without crossing ethical boundaries, like you're filling out some forms before you go into surgery for anesthesia. And it's like, we're not liable if you don't wake up. So maybe there's a ad next to the DocuSign for like a dating app for widowers. Like, is that too soon?
That'd be amazing to do. But so
right,
there is a very important.
this is the fun phase of the podcast. So
This
let's
is the fun phase. So in that situation, there is some major HIPAA issues that go on there, and HIPAA is a really big thing, and particularly in programmatic advertising, right? So unfortunately, that would not be able to, because anything that connects somebody to an actual issue that they're having health wise, it's just going to be
Well,
a
they
hard
haven't had it
no-go.
yet. It's just like, just in case, hey, anything comes up, there you go.
But
It's
hey,
like-
they're going in. They're going into surgery. That's enough. That's enough
No,
from
no,
a health
no.
perspective. Yeah. So
It's
I'm
like
sure
Eric
Mike has a
Roberts,
more.
new dating app invention. It's like you're almost a widower dating app, right?
Call it just in
There's gonna-
case.
There's going to
Predicted
be a
widowers.
huge swipe out there in the waiting room as soon as the doctor comes out and says, "Sorry, your significant other didn't make it. Please look at our screen. We'll give you another option." Like, that's
I wanted to pick Jonathan's brain on the AI front. So when you talked earlier on, you were rattling off all the different things that one can look at to build an audience, right? Like how much, demographic data, how much your credit card spend is, where you go physically, like what you do, like all these things. And it's like a human eye can't derive all those different combinations to find out, match, keep going, or less of a match, back off, right? That's something that is really what lends itself to AI. But we're hearing a lot about AI in advertisement, and we just say, oh, well, that's a benefit, right? This provider on Amazon Ads has 8 different AI features that it looks at, and this one only has 2. So this one must be better than that one. But like, what do you see as far as AI trending in advertising, but also beyond advertising, just sort of the digital marketing side?
I mean, what is an AI going to start to affect across the board? It already has, and it's going to continue to get more and more so. In the digital marketing space, the one thing that I always sit back and laugh at, and I'm a huge AI user. You guys know this. I'm always in there and playing around and trying to figure out new stuff. But the funny thing to me is that a lot of these AI features that people are talking about is just algorithmic, like coding that's basically put in. It's not AI. They're just an algorithm that they put to it. We've been doing that in the space for 25 years. It's nothing that crazy. It sounds cool to say AI now, but when we look at it from an AI perspective, I'm going to try to focus a little bit because my brain's kind of going all over the place. There's so many different ways that we can use it, but I'm going to kind of walk you through a really quick process on how I onboard somebody and how I use AI to do that, because I think that could start to give us a foundation to work from a little bit. And so, what I do is one of the first things is I have a questionnaire of, I think it's 37 questions that I send to my clients, and I have them fill it out. And this questionnaire covers everything from products to customers to their goals to SWOT analysis it's just a whole bunch of information about their business, about their customers, all that kind of stuff. Well, and then what I do is I feed that into a custom GPT that I do on ChatGPT. And then I use that as a baseline for understanding the business. And then I start to interact with that GPT specifically for all things including that specific client. And so it's a very, very focused. And then what I do is I start to supplement it with information. So I feed it the website, I feed it emails, I feed it, some of the advertising data, that kind of stuff. And then I start to just pull it all together and say, hey, can you give me correlations that you're seeing in data? What are things that I'm not thinking of? And I start to just poke and prod from that custom GPT side, right? So that's one of the very first things that I do. And then I jump into something. If you guys haven't used this yet, it's called Deep Research on ChatGPT. This is actually one of the coolest things that I have seen since OpenAI ChatGPT came out. I can have it do a full competitor analysis with fairly accurate information. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect. I'm not getting back end, financial, information, all that jazz that goes along with it. But it'll take about 30, 45 minutes, and it will spit out a doc that's, I mean, pages and pages and pages long of each of the competitors, their SWOT analysis, what they're doing to grow, where they are not doing so hot, all that kind of stuff. And we have a baseline for what the competitor marketplace looks like. And then we can start to work and manipulate from there. And then, kind of keeping going down, if we're talking about working with them on creative, like that's one thing that I know that Mike, we were talking about quite a bit lately is like, how do we take one image, how do we put it into a cool product shot? And then how do we take that product shot and then how do we put it into a video or add some movement to it? Okay. So, I played around that for a little bit and we got it into a pretty cool spot, right? So it's just, that's like kind of all service level stuff. And then you can get into API integrations, but AI is really only limited to what you think it can do. It's it's so robust and there's so much it can do that we feed it data from the platforms, we feed it daily trackers from all the platforms, we do analysis on it, we do, hey, what are, like, here's a keyword set, what are we missing here, give us some examples of long tail keywords that we need to start putting in there. Just, kind of spitballing some stuff right here, but I mean, there's so much to do. It's kind of like a tough question to answer because I don't exactly know which string to pull on and start walking down, because you can do it on pretty much everything. But I mean, AI, if you're not using it, and I don't care if you're in digital advertising or if you are a teacher or anything in between, you should be using it. It will make your life easier and you will be much more effective and probably take a lot less time to do your work when you use it.
Well, you guys have all heard that I've planned my daughter's birthday parties with ChatGPT. So that's like novice. But now I want to ask like something that's maybe more advanced, or like, so if you've noticed a lot of times when you do a Google search, you get the AI script at the top.
AI overview.
Okay. So how is that being, have you seen where that's lending itself to like a different kind of SEO or ad placement or whatever else? Everybody worked really hard to get that first returned result at the top of that search, but now no one's even looking for that first result. They're looking at whatever the AI overview is. Is that like a new area of SEO or ad placement or anything?
So it is, and it isn't. And I say it isn't only because of the fact that Google keeps changing what they're doing and how they're pulling it. So there's not really like a clear delineation that I've heard of yet. And again, I have an SEO nerd. He's amazing. He's my little mad scientist that, he handles all that fun stuff. But from everything that I understand is like Google keeps changing how they are approaching that and where they're pulling that information from, how they're giving, the source material to that information so people can actually interact with it. And so, at one point we were seeing some of the AI overview information being pulled from page like 15 from like results back then. Hey, there's a thumbs up. And it wasn't coming from the top 3. It was kind of all over the place. And originally, if you heard of things like, hopefully I can say this, you might need to beep this one out here, ER, but, even hearing, when some of the results were like, well, you should go jump off a bridge. Like that was the AI overview, like telling people to go kill themselves, right? Like that was like first when they first announced it, like ridiculous things were coming up. They've gotten so much better at it, but Google's currently in a place where they're trying to simultaneously push AI and be really careful about AI at the same time. And so one of the things that like over the last like week, we started to kind of put a hypothesis to is that, the results that they're going to start favoring, which will then pull into the AI overview, are engaged pages on Google or on your website. I'm sorry. That's what Google's actually reading. So it's not going to be just about, backlinks and the keywords and that type of stuff. It's actually going to be, is this useful to somebody? Are they staying on the page? Are they reading it? Are they taking the quiz? Whatever it might be that is engagement on that page. But that's going to be a baseline to tell Google this is a high quality page. And if you're not a high quality page, there's actually rumors that like Google's going to stop indexing low quality pages and start kicking them out of the results entirely. So, I'm not saying that's what's happening, but that's like the latest thought that we have as we're talking through it is that those types of things will be rewarded in different ways that they have historically. And right now it seems to be that engagement could be one of those things that they're rewarding, which doesn't take away the idea of doing like SEO or content articles that are AI written, because if it's an engaged content piece, that's still going to be rewarded. So it's not saying don't do AI. It's just making sure that what you're putting out there is going to be high quality and engaging to people.
Interesting.
How
I
soon
have
do
another.
you think you go for it, Mike?
Well, I have another. Just I want to know where things are going and Jonathan's brain on it. So like, we talk a lot to clients about omnichannel, right? I think that's not new news, but I think that there's every single year in the Amazon front, some new thing has happened, a policy change that could completely derail a company's business, right? Imposing new fees, you know, kicking out distributors on their vendor accounts, like all this stuff that could be a mine that goes off if you're an Amazon heavy business. So we help on Amazon, sure, right? But we also help take brands to new channels, TikTok Shop, Target, Walmart, wherever you might be that you're not. And a part of that is de-risking. A part of that is capturing more eyeballs for shoppers that do frequent those retailers' marketplaces. But then I think about, okay, now you're there, but how do I turn the levers to activate in an omni-channel kind of way, right? So this may be an AI question, maybe it's not, maybe it's just a data aggregation question. But say you have an e-commerce brand that's on Amazon and Target Plus and Walmart, just for instance, right? Have you seen where, so you're on 3 platforms, but you're also advertising on Meta and Google and Amazon and whatever. Have you seen a way of kind of aggregating that data to find out, here's my media platforms, Google versus Meta versus otherwise, and here's my storefronts, Target versus Walmart versus Amazon versus D2C, and like try to feed that into a AI engine to make the best decision for where you should be leaning in or backing out?
So yeah, I do that on a smaller scale. A lot of my clients are not going to be on like the the Walmarts, the Targets. A lot of them are on Amazon and so forth. But yeah, I mean that's very much a use case, right? Like take whatever data you can. Now every client is going to have a different level, from what I understand, on the back end of what information they can actually access, right? So like for example, what I mean by that is, if you're selling on Walmart, you have, your profiles you go to, you upload your products, blah, 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 you're going to see a fair bit of information. But if they're selling it in store, right, that's a whole nother level to that as well. That's not, I think a lot of times they try to like piggyback whenever they can, right? We're going to be online and we're going to be in store. Well, Walmart, from what I understand, in some cases for the bigger brands, they actually give them like CRM access so that you can actually see how many people that you had in your campaigns were driving in store and they actually bought because you have their email. You start putting that together, and then you can feed that into AI, and it becomes a whole new thing, right? But I think generally speaking, one of the things that is really a detriment in this exact situation is that in certain circumstances, like say, for example, on Amazon, they're a big black box. They're a huge black box, and you don't get a lot of that information that connects out to, to larger stores and that type of stuff. And so you have to start to educated guess. With an educated guess, you start to put those together, and AI can absolutely help you with that. So you put in all the information that you have, say, hey, this is my information for the last 3 months, and we're not going to get into prompt engineering and stuff like that, but you give it a really strong prompt about like, hey, you're a master, data analyst, you're a data scientist actually, and you know how to put these pictures together. Here's all our data. What can you tell me from a marketing, and what do I need to start changing on? What levers do I start to do? And it will start to spit out stuff for you. So whatever data you have, you put it in, and then you say, tell me what I need to start doing. What do I need to change? What's going well? And let it just start running for you. And it will spark some ideas. And that's a lot of what it comes down to, is just like, it's not going to be like, oh, this is really bad and you need to stop this and you need to do this. It will say, hey, like this is something we can try, something like those lines. That might spark some ideas. But whatever information you can give to it, the more you give it, the better it's going to be. And so you just start pulling whatever information you do have, you put it in there, you tell it what you need it to do, and it will do it.
ER, you got another question? Because I got another question.
Well, I'm just curious if there's a timeline, or do you anticipate AI being able to alter advertising campaigns? Because a lot of what I know I use it for is just to like time saving when it comes to compiling content and branding and things like that, and then research. But we're still scheduling things out, and we're committing funds like towards these campaigns. And then, we've committed, the money's gone out, and these things are going to go, and maybe we could stop the campaign and repurpose, but then we're recreating with current events and things being so fluctuating, do you think there's a point where AI could tweak a message based on, this demographics alignment based on their search history or something else where they actually clicked and bought something? Or, it could actually, now we have, what is that, Willow chip. It could run all these scenarios on like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And then brands could actually pay for worst case scenario, best case scenario, politics, economy, sports game win, and then run this ad, run that ad, and change this word for that person's television in particular because they like granola bars, type thing.
Yeah.
It just seems like it's being used at such an elementary level, I feel like, for like this big idea. And everyone keeps talking about, oh, the world's just about to change so fast. I'm like, I don't think we can really handle that yet because right now it's still just like a tool in our hand. I don't see it really being used at full force capacity as this like technological god.
Not at this point. maybe in the future somewhere, but not at this point. But it's the same thing, I think, when we look back at something like Photoshop, right? Before Photoshop, you had people who were, hand drawing things or designing things or whatever it might be. And then like Photoshop comes around and it's like, well, there goes my life. There goes my job, my livelihood. And then it comes down to, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to sit there and you're going to throw your hands up, or are you going to learn a new tool and a new skill and develop yourself so you can become, something that's still viable? It's the same thing with AI, right? It's just a tool. But the thing is like the people who know how to use that tool and leverage it are going to be much further along than anybody who's like, well, I'm not going to get involved with this because it's scary and terrifying. It's going to take my job anyway. So why do I care? How are you looking at it? And if you're not looking at it opportunistically, then you're going to be left behind really, really far. And so, like you're exactly like you're saying, it's very much a situation where it's, let me actually backtrack. I could ask any one of you in your daily life, when you're out and about talking to people, how many people are actually using GPT on like a daily basis?
I'd say 60%.
Oh, I'd say 1 out of 10.
Low.
Yeah, I'd probably say I'm closer to 1 out of 10 than I am at 60%. And you probably just, your circles are probably a little bit more like technologically advanced, right?
We are.
And yeah. And so so even with the technologically advanced crew, 60% I would actually say is low, right? If you're technologically advanced, if your circle like that, I would expect it to be higher. But, people are intimidated by it. They're scared of it and they don't know what to do with it. All that stuff that goes on. So most people aren't leveraging it. But in our world, if you're not, you're in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's just saving me a trip to the library, the way it just, because once it gives me the information, it's still my responsibility to absorb it and apply that. It's just consolidating it and saving me a whole bunch of, really, it's saving me from a bunch of advertising I would get on Google.
Right. It becomes more scary to me when you think about the idea that like in 10, 15 years, the doctors that are taking care of us learned because they used ChatGPT, right? They didn't actually learn what they needed to learn from a health perspective to take care of us. They just put something into a ChatGPT and it gave an answer. So you're talking about people with life-saving capabilities that are leaning on something that they didn't actually learn.
The test. Yeah.
So something like that in our world, it's like, dude, just have a heyday with it. Go have fun. But that's the thing that is more interesting to me, is like the people that need to have knowledge and are leveraging it to work around getting that knowledge is more terrifying.
Yeah. And then like putting this technology into cars where the car can pretty much total out someone's net worth. So if there's an inevitable accident, the vehicles can actually decide whose life is worth more.
It's
crazy.
Terrifying.
You're going to the quantum realm, ER.
Oh, we're there.
Well, let me try this. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. They're sort of interrelated, but you got to be sort of quick. So, first question: if there was any type of product or brand that you would want as a client, like you could only have one, what type of product or brand would that be?
Healthcare.
And then, if you could only use one tactic, just one, out of all the tactics, whether it's one platform, one strategy, which one would you choose?
It's on this on how long the business has been around and what that is, because that would change the answer. But out of the gate, programmatic.
Programmatic. And then is there a brand, right, or a company in the healthcare space that's using programmatic that you look up to? You say, hey, they're doing a really good job, and it's because they are doing XYZ, or, you know, could you think of a brand? Maybe it's not in healthcare, but if so, which one?
So healthcare becomes really interesting, right? Because of the HIPAA issue, we're going to circle back around to that topic. It's actually very just upper funnel awareness, right? And so it becomes like, how engaged are you with the ads and that type of stuff. So I actually don't think that healthcare has like the most impressive or like the coolest type of campaigns out there. The ones that I actually think are the most robust are like hospitality. I think hospitality has some of the coolest opportunities for using something like programmatic, because you are doing things from first party, third party. Most of them, like, for example, like I work on a local casino here in San Diego. We're doing hotel bookings, reservations for dining. We're doing entertainment. They have a whole river spa thing in the summer. They have, I mean, game nights, they have bingo, they have all of these things, and you have all these really cool ways to bring people to the property. And so you get to be really robust in what you're doing. So like the hospitality space for that becomes probably the most fun for me. And you can do the coolest things.
That's cool. All right. Well, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot, but I did, and you crushed it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
home run.
the hospitality, or sorry, the healthcare marketing. It's like I still see these commercials for drugs or whatever else. I'm like, who approves this commercial to go out with? You know, a couple
I feel
people
like it's the same
smiling, they're
agency doing the same
holding
exact. All of it,
yeah,
you know,
holding hands in the park. They got looking at ice cream cone and holding a balloon. I'm like, what is going on?
they
in
have
this
to be
over and
using AI to come up with the names of the drugs. There's no other way they can do it. There's no way.
I don't know what they're doing, but I'll say this is like, it's, you know, there's essentially like an ad unit that you can use, because it's got to have that big huge scroller. But like, you know, it's funny whenever you hear anybody from like Europe who are visiting the US and they're like, yeah, what's like the strangest thing that you saw? They're like, pharmaceutical ads everywhere. Why are there
Yeah.
pharmaceutical ads? It's like, I'm not going to be like, oh, I just need to go get Wegovy. I don't know, whatever thing I just saw, whatever. It's like, I'm not just going to go to the doctor and be like, I need whatever crazy name that they came up with for this drug that might help me with my right ear itch. I have no idea. It's like the weirdest thing ever. So yeah, it's a funky like angle in the space.
Well, deep pockets, that's for sure.
And they pretty much just need awareness, right? So like that's why healthcare is like the I would say, quote unquote, the easiest. But if you get bit by HIPAA issues, you're in big trouble. But like generally speaking, it's like you are generally blanketing a group of people, and we're just going to see if we can't get clicks. That's kind of what the essence of healthcare is.
You know, they have these microchips they can put in people's bloodstreams and just kind of like flow throughout the body. I wonder when they'll integrate that with AI, and then if it's a certain brand, if it can like shoot you advertisements. It's not like a click. It's like a thought.
It's gonna go up. It's gonna go up to your eye, and then it's gonna project an ad. Right.
You just feel like
get
an ice cream. Like I just feel like Froyo right now. I don't know what's going on. It's 3:00 in December.
There's a really funny episode of Futurama, if you guys ever watch that, where they get the latest iPhone, EYE, and they stick the phone inside of like the eye socket, and it like projects things around for them and stuff. It's like a hilarious spoof on the actual iPhone. So if you haven't checked it out, we're heading there, unfortunately.
Bender.
Check it out.
All right, Jonathan. Well, I appreciate you dropping some knowledge on us. I think it's clear that you are an expert in the space. And for
pretend to be one
audiences, yeah, for our audiences, I think just like how we say in current commerce all the time, like we will evaluate how you're doing before we can make any kind of recommendation on how we can be of help. So how would you say, for folks that are interested in seeing what you and Optimatic can do for them, like where to start, how to find you, how to engage?
The easiest way, my email is Jonathan at Optimatic.io, or you can go to Optimatic.io. You can just reach out. I am not a salesman, so I'm not going to do the salesman pitch thing. I just like to talk digital marketing and business. And so it's just, hey, well, let's talk about what you're doing. It's a very like no pressure conversation where we start it, and then we kind of go from there. But yeah, at any point, if anybody wants to reach out, you can just Optimatic.io again, or Jonathan, no H in there anywhere, at Optimatic.io. You can email me. Would love to chat.
No H Jonathan.
I like it.
No H
Incredible.
Jonathan.
Incredible.
So.
Did you all see that? That was Mike's first time like landing the plane of an episode.
Yeah, good job, Mike. I think you're. I
Grew
think
up so quick.
we had to drag him to this podcast early on, but now he's just thriving. You know.
Good job, Mike.
All our positive comments are about Mike. He's so handsome. He's such a handsome man.
Well, then ER's over here is like the calming influence here, just keeping everyone sane and just
ER was going today. Your brain, you're going into like quantum theory and particle physics and willow chips.
Totally beyond what this conversation is really about. So I'll reel it back in. But Jonathan, we are super stoked.
We'll make sure to put in the comments a survey of baseball versus soccer so that we can send it out to the crowds to see if we can settle this spat between Jonathan and Brad.
There's no spat, just facts.
Brad, at a later time, I'll send you after our conversation on Monday. I actually asked GPT to roast soccer/football, and they came up with some amazing little tidbits that I'll have to keep in my back pocket for when you're really bothering me.
See, I don't need AI to roast baseball. I mean, it's just everyone knows. It's pretty simple.
I mean, that is just a false statement because it's way more popular in the States than soccer is by a long shot. And by the way, if you want to talk about soccer, men's soccer is the most pathetic thing I've ever seen.
Oh, cut his mic.
Talk about flopping.
I'm going to mute you.
And I will take women's soccer. I love women's soccer. Women's soccer is incredible, and they are badasses. Men, not so much.
No comment.
All right.
I'm good. I'm okay. I'm not going to take that bait.
You're trying
let's just wrap this up. Let's just wrap this up. Okay.
Wrap it up.
Take us home.
Thanks, Jonathan.
I know that's getting cut.
I mean, there's a reason why baseball has to spend